The tail gunner screams over the intercom. His 60-ton B-29 is being flipped upside down, not by an enemy fighter, but by the air itself. Below, Tokyo is no longer a city. It is a 1,800-degree firestorm, a self-sustaining vortex of flame, and the ugly bomber is now flying right through it. February 18th, 1943. 12:09 p.m. over Seattle, Washington. The air is cold and thin, but inside the cockpit of the XB-29, serial number 41-003, the atmosphere is thick with the smell of hot oil and ozone. Boeing's chief test pilot, Edmund "Eddie" Allen, breathes through the building tension, his hands firm on the yoke. This isn't just an aircraft. It's a $3 billion gamble, the most expensive weapons project in human history, dwarfing even the secret Manhattan Project. To the men on the ground, the plane, nicknamed Starduster, is a shimmering, silver leviathan. It's impossibly large, with a 141-foot wingspan that seems to defy physics. It's a machine built for a war that doesn't exist, yet a war fought from 30,000 feet, above the reach of flak and fighters, striking targets 3,000 miles away. But Allen and his 10-man crew know the truth. This Superfortress is a beast. Its features are revolutionary: a fully pressurized crew cabin for high-altitude flight, a complex analog computer system controlling 4 remote-controlled gun turrets, a sleek, aerodynamic fuselage. But its most critical components, the 4 massive Wright R 3,350 duplex Cyclone engines, are its Achilles heel. They are, to put it mildly, foundry nightmares. The 18-cylinder radial engines are experimental, rushed into production, and prone to swallowing their own valves and, most terrifyingly, catching fire. The magnesium used in their construction burns with a blinding, white-hot intensity that can sever a wing spar in minutes. At 12:17 p.m., the nightmare begins. A frantic call cracks over the radio to the Boeing field tower. It's Allen. His voice is tight, professional, but laced with an urgency that chills the blood. "We have a fire. Number 2 engine is on fire." On the ground, horrified engineers and army brass watch as a thick, greasy black plume erupts from the inboard engine on the port wing. The Starduster lurches, Allen fighting the massive yaw as the engine tears itself apart. He's trying to get it home, to nurse the wounded giant back to the runway. This crash isn't just a technical setback, it's a potential catastrophe for the entire U.S. war strategy. General Henry Hap Arnold, Chief of the Army Air Forces, has bet his entire career on the strategic bombing of Japan on this single, unproven design. He ordered 1,600 of them before the first prototype had even flown, a decision considered borderline insane by the War Department. If this plane fails, the war in the Pacific stretches into an unknowable, bloody future. From the cockpit, Allen's view is now obscured by smoke. The fire is spreading, eating through the leading edge of the wing. The controls are turning sluggish, mushy, as the flames begin to cook the hydraulic lines and control cables. Below, the city of Seattle slides by, oblivious. At 12:24 p.m., the tower hears Allen's voice again, no longer calm. "We're not going to make it. We're trying for the golf course." But they won't even make that. The fire has reached the main wing spar. With a groan of tortured metal, the massive port wing folds. The Starduster snaps into an uncontrollable dive, a 60-ton silver javelin aimed at the heart of the city. At 12:26 p.m., the XB-29 impacts the fry meat packing plant. The explosion is catastrophic, a blossoming fireball of aviation fuel and ignited magnesium that registers as a minor earthquake. Eddie Allen, his 10-man crew, and 20 workers on the ground are killed instantly. In the days that follow, the B-29 program is on the verge of cancellation. Rival manufacturers, like Consolidated, push their own proven designs. Engineers and politicians openly mock the project as Hap's folly, the billion-dollar boondoggle. It's too complex, too heavy, too ambitious. It's an ugly, unworkable brute. The plane that was supposed to win the war against Japan had just declared war on its own creators, and it was winning, Washington, D.C., Spring 1943. General Henry Hap Arnold is a man under siege. The Fry plant disaster has handed ammunition to every critic of the B-29 program. His $3 billion gamble is smoldering in a Seattle suburb. But Arnold is not a man who yields. He sees the map of the world not as it is, but as it must be. He knows that victory over Japan, a nation, defended by thousands of miles of ocean, cannot be achieved by island hopping alone. It requires a weapon that can leap over the ocean, bypass the Imperial Army, and strike the Japanese homeland directly from an altitude where no defense can reach it. The B-29 is the only weapon that can do it. He slams his fist on the desk of the War Department. The program will not be cancelled. It will be accelerated. This decision triggers an industrial and logistical avalanche. The B-29 is ordered into full-scale production at 4 massive, brand-new plants: Wichita, Omaha, Renton, and Marietta. The problem is, the design isn't finished. The blueprints for the plane are being modified, redrawn, and updated daily. The result is pure chaos. Thousands of brand-new, multi-million-dollar B-29 seconds roll off the assembly lines and are immediately grounded. They are, in effect, 60-ton collections of parts flying in loose formation. The situation becomes so dire it earns its own name: the Battle of Kansas. March 1944. A biting wind sweeps across the endless tarmac of a modification center in Salina, Kansas. The scene is surreal. As far as the eye can see, hundreds of B-29 seconds sit parked, their polished aluminum skins reflecting the bleak winter sky. They look like a vast, beached pod of silver whales. They are all unflyable. This is the command of Major General K. B. Wolfe. He's a hardened, no-nonsense logistician, and he has been handed the most thankless job in the Army Air Forces. Take this fleet of flawed superweapons and make them fight. The problem? Every single plane needs to be rebuilt. Right here, on the tarmac, in the open-air cold. Mechanics, engineers, and civilian modification specialists from Bell, Boeing, and Martin swarm over the aircraft, 24 hours a day, in 3-shift rotations. They are fighting the Battle of Kansas with rivet guns and wrenches. The list of required changes is staggering: over 1,000 individual modifications per plane. They rip out faulty wiring. They replace entire sections of the revolutionary but flawed remote-control turret systems. But mostly, they fight the engines. The Wright R3000, 350 seconds, are still the heart of the problem. They are so prone to overheating that crews paint a cowling line, a literal red line on the engine nacelle that, if the heat-discolored paint crosses it, the engine is immediately red-tagged for a complete 300 man-hour overhaul. The flight crews, the first generation of B-29 pilots and engineers, are in a state of barely controlled terror. They are training on a machine that actively wants to kill them. Takeoffs are the worst. The R3000, 350 seconds, gulping down high-octane fuel as they strain to lift 135,000 pounds, generate so much heat that they frequently ignite on the takeoff roll. Crews develop a grim joke. A B-29 is the only plane in the world that can't complete a round trip on 4 engines. The flight engineer becomes the most important man on board. He's not just a crewman. He's a high-wire artist, a mechanic, and a priest, delicately balancing fuel mixtures, prop pitch, and cowl flaps for 15 hours straight, his eyes glued to the 108 dials and gauges that are the only thing standing between his crew and a magnesium-fueled inferno. Meanwhile, 10,000 miles away, Japanese intelligence in Tokyo analyzes the reports. They know about the B-29. They've heard rumors of a new whale bomber. Their engineers, proud creators of the nimble, lightweight Ki-43 Oscar and the legendary A6M0, are dismissive. Based on its rumored size, weight, and the intercepted reports of catastrophic engine fires, they conclude it's an American folly. It's too big, too complex, too heavy. A flying cigar, one engineer calls it. Another mocks its ugly Faymada, BB techie, functionality. They are confident that if this lumbering giant ever does make it across the ocean, their sleek, fast-climbing Ki-61 Hien fighters will tear it from the sky. They are wrong. They have mistaken the brutal, agonizing, and impossibly expensive process of innovation for a final, failed product. They don't see the B-29 seconds sitting in Kansas. They see the B-29 that will be. And it is being forged, in fire and frustration, by Hap Arnold's unbending will. August 20th, 1944, 28,000 feet above the Himalayas. The cockpit of the B-29 Hump Happy is an icebox. The crew, though sealed in their pressurized tubes, feel the negative 40-degree cold seeping through the metal skin. Below them is not an ocean, not a city, but the most hostile terrain on Earth, the hump. A jagged, impassive sea of ice and rock, the peaks of Kanchenjunga and Everest stabbing into the stratosphere. The four Wright R3000, 350 seconds drone on, but it's a nervous, ragged sound in the thin air. The flight engineer, eyes bloodshot from staring at his panel, is milking the fuel levers, trying to keep the engines from either choking or igniting. This is Operation Matterhorn, the B-29's combat debut, and it is a logistical nightmare. The plan, conceived by Roosevelt and Arnold, was to fly the B-29 seconds from newly built 500-mile-long runways in Chengdu, China. From there, they could just barely reach the soft underbelly of Japan's industrial heartland. But China had no supplies, no fuel, no bombs, no spare parts. Everything had to be flown in from bases in India, over the hump, and the only plane that could fly over the hump with a heavy load was the B-29 itself. The result is a strategic absurdity. The B-29, the world's most advanced bomber, has been reduced to the world's most expensive and dangerous flying gas can. For every one combat sortie against Japan, B-29 seconds have to fly 6 grueling, round-trip missions over the Himalayas, hauling their own fuel and bombs to their forward bases in China. Crews are being lost. Planes are crashing into mountainsides, not while fighting the enemy, but just to get ready to fight the enemy. The combat missions themselves are just as frustrating. On June 15th, 1944, the first raid is launched against the Imperial Iron and Steel Works at Yawata. Japanese spotters are stunned. The silver whales are here. Anti-aircraft batteries open up, their shells bursting thousands of feet below the bombers. Ki-43 Oscar fighters, their engines screaming at maximum power, claw their way up, only to hang on their propellers, unable to do more than pepper the bombers' undersides before stalling and falling away. The B-29 seconds are untouchable, but high-altitude precision bombing is a fiction. At 30,000 feet, the B-29 seconds encounter an invisible, malicious enemy, the jet stream. This high-speed river of wind, flowing at over 200 miles per hour, throws the bombers across the sky. The vaunted Norden bombsight, an analog computer designed for the gentle skies over Europe, is rendered utterly useless. Bombs, dropped with precision, are scattered over 10 square miles of countryside. The raid on Yawata, the culmination of this $3 billion project, destroys one powerhouse. Subsequent raids are no better. The B-29 seconds return to China, their bomb bays empty, their crews exhausted, having done almost no damage. Back in Tokyo, the Japanese engineers who had mocked the ugly plane now feel vindicated. The B-29 is exactly what they thought, a BB techie failure. It's a technological marvel that can't fight. It's an expensive, high-altitude parade. In Washington, Hap Arnold is incandescent with rage. He has poured the nation's treasure into this weapon, and it is failing. The Battle of Kansas was a fight against engineering. Matterhorn is a fight against physics and geography, and he is losing. He needs a new man. Not an engineer, not a test pilot. He needs a butcher. He finds him in Europe, commanding the 8th Air Force, General Curtis LeMay. LeMay is 38 years old, blunt, ruthless, and perpetually chomping a cigar. He is a man of pure, cold logic. He is sent to India to take over the B-29 command. He arrives, looks at the endless, impossible supply chain over the hump, looks at the abysmal bomb plot photos and grinds his teeth. He understands the problem. The strategy is wrong. The altitude is wrong. The bombs are wrong. The plane isn't the problem. The idea of the plane is the problem. He doesn't have time to fix it here. But, by a stroke of fate, he won't have to. Half a world away, the U.S. Marines are clawing their way ashore on a tiny, volcanic island in the Pacific, a place called Saipan. They are paying for that black sand in blood. They don't know it, but they are building a new 8,500-foot runway that will change the world. January 27th, 1945. 29,000 feet over Tokyo. Inside the B-29 Dauntless Dottie, the crew is fighting for their lives. The bombardier, First Lieutenant Robert Tracy, isn't looking for a target. He's staring in disbelief at his instruments. The outside air temperature is -50 degrees Fahrenheit, and the ground speed indicator is flickering between 420, 430, 450 miles per hour. They are no longer flying an airplane. They are a bullet, fired from a 1,500-mile-long gun, caught in the invisible, screaming torrent of the jet stream. This was supposed to be the decisive phase. The U.S. Marines had conquered Saipan, Tinian, and Guam at a horrific cost, transforming the islands into unsinkable aircraft carriers. The XXI Bomber Command, now under Curtis LeMay, had hundreds of B-29 seconds, endless fuel, and an 8,000-foot runway of crushed coral pointing like a pistol straight at the heart of Japan. The nightmare of the hump was over. But the nightmare of the sky had just begun. LeMay, under intense pressure from Washington, had resumed the same strategy. High altitude, daylight, precision bombing. The target today, the Nakajima aircraft engine plant at Musashino, the most important industrial target in the empire. It is a complete, unmitigated disaster. Lieutenant Tracy, his face pressed to the rubber eyepiece of his Norden bombsight, curses into his oxygen mask. He can't get a sightline. The crosshairs skate across the snow-dusted landscape below as if it's on fast forward. The bombsight's delicate gyros are overwhelmed, useless. Bombardier to pilot. It's no good, skipper. The stream's got us. I can't track. Just drop 'em on the PI, primary identification point, Tracy. Drop 'em and let's get out of here. Below them, the sky erupts. The Japanese have adapted. They know the B-29 seconds are slaves to the jet stream, forced into predictable, high-altitude corridors. Their new Ki-61 Hien fighters, their engines supercharged to the bursting point, are climbing to meet them. But it's not the Hien that the crew of Dauntless Dottie sees. It's a Kawasaki Ki-45 Toryu, a Nick twin-engine fighter. It's been stripped of all armor, its cannons removed. The pilot is on a one-way mission. The Nick doesn't bank or turn. It rockets up from below, its canopy glinting, aiming not at Dottie but at the B-29 flying off her port wing, Hooligan's Holiday. The radio screams, "Fighter, 9 o'clock! My God, he's not turning!" The Japanese pilot, Sergeant Masao Itagaki, plows his 5-ton aircraft directly into the wing root of Hooligan's Holiday. The explosion is instantaneous, a grotesque, blossoming flower of orange, black, and silver confetti. The B-29's wing shears off, and the fuselage, with 11 men trapped inside, begins a sickening, 6-mile spin to the ground. Dottie's crew watches, paralyzed, as their bombs tumble uselessly into the wind, missing the Nakajima plant by miles. Back on Guam, Curtis LeMay stands in his Quonset hut, chewing an unlit cigar. The strike photos are laid out on his desk. They are a portrait of failure, weeks of missions, dozens of lost planes, hundreds of dead airmen. And the Musashino plant? It is untouched. His crews are on the verge of mutiny. The B-29, this super weapon, is being defeated by the wind. LeMay is a man of brutal arithmetic. He is losing more planes to mechanical failure engines burning out, crews driven mad by 16-hour flights and weather, than he is to the enemy. The entire $3 billion program, the linchpin of the Pacific strategy, is failing. Hap Arnold is screaming via cable from Washington. The pressure is absolute. LeMay, the butcher, looks at his maps. He looks at his weather charts. He looks at the reconnaissance photos of Tokyo, Osaka, and Nagoya. He doesn't see steel factories. He sees a different kind of target. He sees cities of wood, paper, and bamboo. He calls in his lead navigators and pilots. He asks a simple question. What if we go in low? The men are stunned. Low, sir? How low? 5,000 feet. The room goes silent. 5,000 feet is flak altitude. It's light arms altitude. You can be hit by a rifle at 5,000 feet. It's suicide. LeMay continues, his voice flat, emotionless. The jet stream is gone down there. The Japanese fighters can't find us at night. We'll be faster. Faster, sir. How? We're stripping the planes, LeMay says. Pull out the 50 calibers. Pull out the ammo. Pull out the gunners. Pull out the armor plate. He is describing a different airplane. A light, fast, defenseless tanker. What are we dropping, sir? A pilot asks, dreading the answer. LeMay points to a new type of bomb sitting on his desk. It's not a 500 lab high explosive. It's a small, 6-pound canister, designed to be dropped in clusters of 38. It's the M69 Incendiegel bomb. Jellied gasoline. Napalm. The plan is no longer precision. It is annihilation. March 9th, 1945, 5:30 p.m., Northfield, Tinian. The briefing hut is a packed, stifling hotbox, crammed with over 2,000 airmen. They are dressed in khaki, sweating in the oppressive jungle humidity. The mood is not just tense, it's funereal. They know this is different. Brigadier General Thomas Power, LeMay's top deputy, stands on the platform. He is as blunt and unforgiving as his boss. Tonight, he begins, his voice cutting through the humid air. A low, stunned murmur ripples through the crowd. This is a death sentence. You will go in single file, Power continues, not in formation. You will be routed directly to the target. There will be no evasive action. The men look at each other, their faces pale. This is madness. And Power adds, you will be unarmed. All 50 caliber ammunition, all armor plate, and all gunners, except for the tail gunner, will be left behind. The room explodes. Men shout, it's suicide. They're sacrificing us. This isn't a mission. It's a court-martial offense. LeMay is going to get them all killed. Power waits for the noise to die. We're stripping you down to save weight. We're replacing the ammo with bombs. Incendiary bombs. Every plane will carry 6 to 8 tons. You are not just bombing a target, you are going to burn it. The target. Tokyo. Specifically, a 1-2 square mile rectangle in the heart of the Shitamachi district, one of the most densely populated urban areas on Earth, where 100,000 people live per square mile in houses made of paper, wood, and bamboo. At 7:45 p.m., the first B-29, Pathfinder 1, lumbers onto the runway. Its engines, painted black to reduce their glow, strain under the greatest load they have ever carried. The plane is a flying bomb, a 135,000-pound tanker of jellied gasoline. It roars into the darkness, its R3000, 350 seconds at war emergency power, spitting blue flames. It barely clears the Jeep Peep, a small cliff at the end of the Tinian runway. Then, the second plane, the third. For 3 solid hours, a river of silver, stripped down, and defenseless B-29 seconds, launches into the night, one every 45 seconds, 334 inches all. Several don't make it, their engines failing under the strain, turning into 1,000-gallon fireballs at the end of the runway, a grim prologue for the night to come. March 10th, 1945, 07 a.m. 7,000 feet, over Tokyo. The crew of the lead Pathfinder B-29, Little Dempsey, stares down at a city, sleeping under a light haze. The Japanese are completely blind, their radar is primitive, their night fighters are grounded, and their anti-aircraft guns are all aimed at 30,000 feet. expecting the ugly bombers to return to their failed high-altitude strategy. Bombs away. The Pathfinders drop their M47 napalm bombs, which explode in a perfect, mile-wide, burning X in the center of the target zone. At 0:20 a.m., the main force arrives. The crews, who had flown 1,500 miles in terrified silence, can't believe their eyes. The X is blazing. There is no flak, there are no fighters. They fly their steady, straight-line bomb runs, toggling their payloads of M69 goop bombs. These are not explosive bombs. They are small, 6-pound tubes of napalm, bundled together, designed to tumble through the flimsy roofs, scatter, and ignite inside the wooden homes. The first wave of bombers sees a city on fire. The second wave, arriving 30 minutes later, sees a sea of fire. The third wave sees a new, horrifying phenomenon. The target is no longer a city. It is a single, unified column of superheated air, a self-sustaining vortex of flame, a firestorm. The air over Tokyo, heated to 1,800 degrees Fahrenheit, is rising at hurricane speed. The winds are so violent that they begin to throw the B-29 60-ton bombers across the sky. The tail gunner of Dauntless Dottie, the same plane that had survived the Musashino raid, screams over the intercom as his bomber is flipped upside down, throwing the entire crew against their harnesses. The air is filled with the smell. It's not wood smoke, it's the smell of burning pitch, of industrial chemicals, and, unmistakably, of cooked meat. The bombers are flying through the atomized remains of the city and the people below. March 10th, 1945. 1:30 a.m. Asakusa District, Tokyo. On the ground, there is no sky. There is only a roaring red-black ceiling of smoke. The M69 goop bombs have done their work with chilling precision. They punched through the thin tile and wooden roofs, scattered across tatami mats and paper walls, and ignited inside the homes. The fire did not spread between houses. It erupted from 10,000 houses simultaneously. For the citizens of Shitamachi, there was no warning. The air raid sirens had sounded, but they were used to the high-altitude parades of the ugly B-29 seconds, whose bombs landed harmlessly miles away. Tonight, there were no searchlights. No heavy anti-aircraft fire. Just the low, menacing drone of hundreds of engines, a sound like a metal river in the sky. Then, the X ignited. Within minutes, the 30 mph wind blowing in from the bay fanned the small fires into a single, cohesive wall of flame. This wall, fueled by 1,000,000 wooden structures, began to move. It advanced not at the speed of a fire, but at the speed of a running man. The firestorm was born. It began to feed itself, creating its own weather. The rising column of superheated air, thousands of feet high, sucked in cold air from all sides at gale force. This wind, reaching 70 miles per hour, picked up burning debris planks, tatami mats, people and threw them hundreds of feet, creating new fires far ahead of the main front. Civilians who ran for the designated safe areas, the wide fire breaks, found a horrifying truth. The firestorm simply leaped over them. Those who fled to the Sumida River and its canals jumped into the water, only to find the B-29 seconds were now dropping napalm directly into the river. The water itself was on fire. The air became unbreathable. The fire consumed all the oxygen, creating a vacuum that suffocated thousands in their flimsy backyard shelters. They were not burned. They were asphyxiated, found days later, huddled in groups, without a single mark on them. The temperature in the heart of the storm reached 2,000 degrees Fahrenheit. Metal bridges glowed red and sagged into the canals. Glass melted. The moisture in the human body literally boiled. At 6:15 a.m., the last B-29 turns for home. The crews, flying 1,500 miles back to Tinian, are in a state of profound shock. The 16-hour flight is punctuated by long stretches of intercom silence. The adrenaline is gone, replaced by a cold, greasy sickness. They don't need to be told what they did. They had smelled it. As they land on Tinian in the bright tropical sunlight, the ground crews are arg. The B-29 seconds, once shimmering silver, are now streaked with black soot. Their bellies and the leading edges of their wings are blistered and scorched. The paint bubbled and peeled from the intense heat of the inferno they flew over. When the hatches crack open, the ground crews reel back, hit by the stench of burned wood, chemicals, and death that has clung to the planes. The airmen climb down, their faces blackened with smoke that was sucked into their own ventilation systems. They don't talk. They just stumble towards the debriefing hut, their 100-yard stares fixed on nothing. Back on Guam, LeMay gets the first daylight reconnaissance photos. A high-flying F-13, a photo recon B-29, has dashed over the city at 30,000 feet. The photos are laid on the table. They are almost featureless. Where Tokyo's most densely populated district had been, there is now a 16.7 square mile black, smoking, rectangular scar. It is a perfect geometric shape of total annihilation burned onto the map. The statistics are numbing. 267,000 buildings destroyed, over 1 million people made homeless. And the dead? The Japanese will later count 83,000, but the true number is well over 100,000. More people killed in a single 6-hour period than at Hiroshima. More than at Nagasaki. The billion-dollar Boondoggle had just become the most efficient instrument of destruction in human history. The mockery of the Japanese engineers has evaporated, replaced by a silent, existential terror. The ugly bomber, the plane that couldn't hit a factory, had found its true calling. It wasn't a precision weapon. It was a city killer. And LeMay, the butcher, was just getting started. March 11th, 1945, 9 a.m. Tinian. The B-29 crews are in a state of collective collapse. They are given 48 hours to sleep, to try and wash the smell of soot and death from their skin. The maintenance crews, however, work without rest. They patch the blistered fuselages, check the abused engines, and begin pumping 7,000 gallons of fuel back into the belly of each bomber. General LeMay does not pause. He does not celebrate. He does not second-guess. He is a man with a timetable and a new, proven formula. The Tokyo raid was not an act of revenge. It was an experiment. And the experiment was a horrifying success. He now has the tool to end the war, and he intends to use it. He is no longer targeting factories. He is targeting Japan's ability to make war, and that ability, he has reasoned, is housed in the small, shadow factories and workshops operating inside the wooden homes of its industrial cities. On March 11th, while Tokyo is still smouldering, the teletypes in the Tinian briefing huts clatter to life. The new target, Nagoya. The crews are roused from their bunks, their hands still shaking. They are sent back into the air. 317B. 29 seconds. Again stripped. Again loaded to the brim with napalm. They fly low. At night. They burn 2.05 square miles of Japan's third largest city. 2 days later, Osaka, Japan's industrial hub. 301B. 29 seconds. 8.1 square miles destroyed. 1 million homeless. 3 days after that, Kobe, the nation's 6th largest city and a major port. 331B. 29 seconds. 3 square miles burned to the water's edge, destroying the shipyards and shadow factories. In just 10 days, LeMay's XXI Bomber Command has flown 1,600 sorties, dropped 10,000 tons of incendiaries, and wiped out 31 square miles of Japan's 4 largest cities. They have killed over 150,000 people and dehoused millions. They have done more damage to the Japanese war machine than the entire combined efforts of the U.S. Navy and the Army Air Forces over the past 3 years, and they have done it at a shockingly low cost. Of the 1,600 sorties, only 22 B-29 seconds are lost, a loss rate of 1.4%. The suicide missions at 5,000 feet were, in fact, statistically, the safest missions of the war. LeMay has run out of bombs. The depots on Tinian and Guam are empty. He is forced to pause, waiting for the supply ships to race across the Pacific. In Tokyo, the imperial cabinet is in a state of panic. The mockery for the ugly bomber is a distant, bitter memory. The B-29 or B-SAN, Mr. B, as the terrified civilians now call it, is a demon. It is a superweapon that cannot be stopped. Their sleek, fast-climbing Hien and Oscar fighters are useless. At 5,000 feet, at night, they are blind. Their anti-aircraft fire is inaccurate, unguided, and completely overwhelmed by the sheer number of attackers. The firebombing campaign has broken the fundamental equation of the war. The Imperial Army could trade blood for time on Iwo Jima and Okinawa, but they cannot stop the B-29 seconds from systematically erasing their homeland from the map, one city at a time. When the bombs are replenished, the campaign resumes with a relentless, mechanical rhythm. All through April, May, and June, the B-29 seconds go out. Night after night, Nagoya again, Tokyo again, Yokohama, Hamamatsu, Toyama. 66 cities are targeted. 66 cities are burned. The B-29, the $3 billion Boondoggle, the plane that couldn't hit a factory from 30,000 feet, is now the most terrifying weapon on Earth. It has become the ugly superfortress in every sense, an unstoppable, remorseless beast whose very shadow means the end of a city. By July 1945, LeMay has burned 180 square miles of urban Japan. The country's industrial capacity has ceased to exist. The government is paralyzed, but still, they do not surrender. LeMay, Hap Arnold, and the planners in Washington know a conventional invasion of the home islands will cost 1 million American lives. They must escalate, again. On Tinian, a new, top-secret detachment, the 509th Composite Group, takes over a cordoned-off section of the airfield. Their B-29 seconds are different. They are the most advanced models, the silver plate variants. They have been stripped of all armor, all turrets, and modified with a single, massive, pneumatically operated bomb bay. They are practicing a new kind of mission. A single plane, flying high, dropping a single bomb. The B-29, having been designed for high-altitude precision, then adapted for low-altitude annihilation, is about to be adapted one final time to become the only weapon in history capable of delivering the sun.